I harbor a deep, dark secret, one that has been haunting me relentlessly through anonymous, menacing messages. The genesis of this ordeal can be traced back to my final semester of high school, a time fraught with anxiety over exams and grades. My aspirations were tied to gaining admission to a prestigious university, which necessitated an unblemished record of straight A's. But as fate would have it, my father was my chemistry teacher, and contrary to what one might assume, it was no advantage. My dad was renowned for his unyielding teaching style, striking fear into the hearts of all his students. Unfortunately, I hadn't inherited the nerdy genes necessary for excelling in chemistry. For me, the subject was nothing short of a nightmare, and being his child only made it worse. He expected more from me than from the other students, and chemistry became the one subject where I perpetually lagged behind. The catalyst for my secret misdeed occurred on the eve of a crucial chemistry exam. I crept into my father's room and purloined the key to the school lab. I needed a place to practice, and home simply wouldn't suffice. It was around 10 p.m. when I entered the lab, its dimly lit interior casting eerie shadows, rendering it impossible to turn on the lights for fear of discovery. I removed elements and substances from the shelves and commenced the arduous task of working through the exercises. By 3 a.m., exhaustion had overtaken me, and I found myself enveloped in slumber. It was only when a pungent sulfur odor assailed my senses that I awoke. To my horror, the entire lab was engulfed in flames. Panic surged through me, but a surge of adrenaline spurred me into action. I seized the fire extinguisher and battled the inferno that threatened to consume everything. Chaos reigned as equipment shattered and materials exploded in the blaze. To compound my predicament, the extinguisher malfunctioned, leaving me grappling with the unrelenting flames. Fear gripped me, my heart pounded, and the oppressive smoke made breathing a challenge. Calling the fire department was out of the question, as my presence in the lab was clandestine. Desperate, I fled the burning lab, my nerves in tatters. I surreptitiously returned the key and retreated to my room, where sleep remained elusive. The vivid memories of that harrowing night played on a loop in my mind, a constant reminder that not only had my life been in peril, but my scholarship was also hanging by a thread. The following day, I still carried the lingering scent of sulfur, and I struggled to muster an appetite. I reluctantly slid into the driver's seat of my father's car, and we set off for school. Upon our arrival, pandemonium reigned. Firefighters, police, and a swarm of reporters had descended upon the scene. The lab's wall stood blackened by the blaze. I feigned surprise to the best of my ability and dashed out of the car to find solace in the company of my best friend, Hannah. "What happened?" I asked Hannah, my voice heavy with concern. It was the most immediate question on my mind. Seeking more information, I inquired if anyone knew who might be responsible, but Hannah's response was disheartening. "No," she replied with a somber shake of her head. We made our way to class, but I found it increasingly difficult to maintain composure. I concealed my trembling hands beneath my desk, hoping to stave off suspicion. Hannah fixed me with an inquisitive gaze, her unspoken concern palpable. When the bell finally rang, she guided me to the bathroom, where she promptly demanded the truth. I attempted to wear an innocent facade, but Hannah, who knew me all too well, wasn't fooled. She pointed at my hair, where the telltale signs of singeing were evident. The secret I had harbored was no longer sustainable. Casting a furtive glance to ensure our privacy, I divulged the truth. Her shock was palpable, but I implored her in a hushed tone, "Don't tell anyone. I can't risk losing my scholarship." Throughout the day, I strained to eavesdrop on conversations and sifted through the rumors, hoping to gauge whether the authorities had unearthed any leads. With each passing moment, my anxiety abated as it became apparent that no one possessed a clue. However, as the day neared its end, a peculiar envelope awaited me in my locker. As I opened it, my world crumbled. Inside was a succinct note that read, "I know it was you." A wave of nausea washed over me, and I glanced around, but nothing appeared amiss. Who was this mysterious figure? How had they uncovered my secret? Did the handwriting appear familiar? Alas, I found myself without answers, gripped by an overwhelming sense of fear and uncertainty. Attempting to maintain a semblance of composure on my way home, I endeavored to focus on my scholarship-related studies. Nevertheless, my efforts proved futile. Having slept inadequately for 2 consecutive nights, my ability to concentrate was plummeting precipitously. Around noon, I stumbled upon yet another anonymous message tucked away in my backpack. Sensing the urgency of the situation, I beckoned Hannah, and we retreated to the bathroom for a private conversation. My initial reaction was to point the finger at her. After all, she was the sole confidant privy to my secret, and the menacing messages had begun shortly thereafter. In my state of agitation, I leveled accusations against her. My words were laced with frustration, and I cast blame upon her for every distressing development. She reacted with a visceral outburst, wounded by my allegations. However, I remained steadfast in my conviction: if roles were reversed, she would have done the same. I labeled her a traitor, insinuating that jealousy had driven her actions with malicious intent. A volley of insults ensued, driving her to tears as she stormed out of the bathroom. Moments later, I emerged into the hallway, overwhelmed by a sense of scrutiny from everyone around me. Did they know my secret? Had it been exposed? Could Hannah truly be a turncoat? Fueled by anxiety, I erupted at a stranger, shouting down a boy I had never met. He laughed alongside his friends and continued on their way, seemingly privy to my predicament. The conviction that my secret was on the cusp of unraveling intensified when I heard my name blaring over the loudspeaker, summoning me to the headmaster's office. Anxiety-induced perspiration began to bead on my forehead, and by the time I reached his office, I was drenched. His concerned gaze met mine, and he inquired about my well-being. A quick glance at my reflection in a portrait's glass frame revealed a disheveled appearance, with unkempt hair and raccoon-like dark circles under my eyes. Summoning every ounce of composure, I hastily ran my fingers through my hair and mustered a smile, feigning nonchalance. Despite my best efforts, my knees quivered as I settled into the chair, legs crossed. The headmaster produced an envelope, placing it on his desk with an air of seriousness that drove me perilously close to the brink of confession. But then, to my astonishment, he declared, "Congratulations. Your scholarship has been approved." Tears welled up in my eyes as I experienced a surge of elation. I felt like I was on cloud 9. Only a few more weeks, and this seemingly endless nightmare would come to an end. All that lay ahead was passing the remaining exams, and my dream would be realized. I profusely thanked the headmaster and hurried back to my locker, where my world was aglow with the prospect of success. However, as I eagerly swung open my locker, my jubilant mood was instantly shattered by the contents of the next anonymous message: "You will lose your scholarship for this." I was perplexed and devastated. Minutes had barely elapsed since the headmaster's good news, and I couldn't fathom what was happening. A group of students passed by, their laughter grating on my already frayed nerves. In a fit of frustration, I turned to them and vehemently demanded that they leave me be. Their laughter only intensified, and they departed in mirth. Upon entering the cafeteria during lunchtime, I was greeted by a sea of prying eyes and hushed conversations. Clearly, the gossip had permeated every corner of the school. I couldn't shake the conviction that Hannah was the culprit behind my misery. She knew that I was the top student at the school, and it seemed as though she was determined to sabotage my life. Our eyes locked in a heated exchange, yet she remained oddly stoic amidst the laughter of our peers. I collected my lunch and retreated to the bathroom to consume it, my trembling hands making even the simplest task, like opening a yogurt container, a formidable challenge. Fatigue weighed heavily upon me, and before I knew it, I had fallen into an uneasy slumber. When I awoke, it was nearly time to head home, and the realization that I had missed my history exam hit me like a freight train. Panic gripped me as I dashed to the principal's office, claiming illness as my excuse. The expression on her face upon seeing me must have mirrored my disheveled state. She agreed to let me make up the history test at a later date and suggested I go home. However, I was trapped in a nightmarish cycle. My inability to focus on any subject was dragging down my grades across the board. The principal summoned me again, this time with a stern warning that my scholarship was hanging by a thread if my downward spiral persisted. Why did this have to happen to me now? I had neither the energy nor the motivation to tackle my biology test, but I had no alternative. I hoped I hadn't inadvertently nodded off during the exam, but as I opened my folder, another message stared back at me: the truth will come out. Confess. Now. A rush of adrenaline coursed through me, jolting me awake. The teacher noticed my agitation and began approaching me, inquiring about the paper in my possession. Acting on instinct, I hastily crumpled it into a dozen shreds. It was an ordeal worse than I could have imagined. Realization dawned upon me too late that my impulsive reaction mirrored exactly what a student guilty of cheating would do. Panic surged within me as I glanced around the classroom, only to find every pair of eyes fixed firmly on me. The overwhelming pressure pushed me to the brink of insanity. I couldn't bear the thought of facing the exam I knew I was destined to fail, especially now with no plausible excuse in sight. Frantically, I fled from the classroom, my whole body trembling with a sense of despair. My once promising academic future now lay in tatters. I found solace in the seclusion of the bathroom, locking myself in and allowing the suffocating darkness to engulf me. I even harbored thoughts of wanting it all to end. Hannah, my supposed friend, entered the bathroom and softly called my name, expressing genuine concern for my well-being. She suggested I confide in the principal, insisting he might be understanding given the circumstances. Her words ignited a firestorm of anger within me. I lashed out, questioning her motives and casting her as a traitor. I couldn't bear her well-intentioned lies any longer. In a fit of rage, I hurled accusations at my classmates as I stormed out of the bathroom, branding them all as traitors. My outburst drew the attention of everyone around me, and their bewildered gazes only fueled my anger further. I needed to escape, to retreat to the safety of my home. Summoning an Uber, I reached into my jeans pocket for my phone, and to my dismay, another anonymous message slipped out. It read, "Everyone knows it was you." My sanity teetered on the edge. I couldn't take it any longer. My voice pierced through the air as I screamed, and the entire school seemed to freeze in response. In a moment of uncharacteristic candor, I confessed, yelling, "Okay, it was me. I set the lab on fire." "So what? It was an accident. Are you happy now?" But the shock on their faces contradicted my expectation that they already knew. An eerie silence hung heavy in the air, as I remained frozen, my secret laid bare for all to see. The principal, wearing a stern expression, materialized in the hallway and demanded that I accompany him to his office. As I walked alongside him, the weight of my academic failures and the bizarre spectacle I had just created eclipsed my anxiety. My scholarship had likely already slipped from my grasp, and no punishment the principal could mete out could compare to the turmoil that had consumed me. As we entered the principal's office, my heart sank when I saw my dad already there. Had he somehow discovered my secret too? His expression, however, remained devoid of surprise. All I could manage to utter was a feeble, "I'm sorry, Dad." He wasted no time in chastising me for my irresponsibility. He confessed to being the mastermind behind the anonymous messages, explaining that he had hoped they would frighten me into confessing. But seeing my distraught state, he considered it a failed attempt. The revelation that my father was the author of those messages left me utterly dumbfounded and crushed. I could hardly find the words to express my shock. "You're insane!" I screamed. "Do you comprehend how twisted this is? You made me lose my scholarship. You set the lab on fire, and now it's my fault?" My father's response was harsh. He declared that I must confront the consequences of my actions, young lady. Tears welled up in my eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all. I turned to the principal and issued an apology, acknowledging my mistake and expressing my readiness to accept whatever punishment was deemed appropriate. His response was non-committal, mentioning the necessity of discussing the matter with the school board. Exiting the office, I glared at my father, accusing him of being impossible. I vented my frustration about the immense pressure he had placed upon me, leading to the dire situation we now faced. I didn't hold back as I voiced my fears and disappointments. Walking away from the office, my immediate thoughts turned to Hannah. I realized how unjustly I had treated her and embarked on a search to find her. I discovered her in the bathroom, tears streaming down her face. She appeared angry, and I could hardly blame her. I explained the entire situation and offered my heartfelt apologies. She concurred that my dad was indeed acting irrationally. "What do you think will happen now?" she asked. I couldn't provide a definitive answer, but I did understand that no one should bear such immense pressure, especially a teenager on the brink of completing high school. At 18, we were already burdened with the uncertainty of our futures, a challenge that even 50-year-olds struggled with. I knew who I was and what I liked. Even if I lost my scholarship, I remained determined to find my path in life. Fortunately, I had the unwavering support of my friends. With their encouragement, I believed I could navigate the challenges ahead, and the rest would fall into place with time.